Welcome everyone to the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness for Wednesday, November 13th. Thank you to the members who've joined us in person and online today. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have no late items to introduce, so I will request a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Sean, seconded by Tammy. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. And we have one set of minutes for adoption from our last meeting on September 11th. Unless anyone has any changes or amendments, then I'll request a motion for the adoption of those minutes. Moved by Alexandria and seconded by Sean. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. We have no council communications, so moving into presentations, we have a presentation on accessibility wayfinding, an update presentation, and this is going to be introduced by Charlotte Davis, our Acting Director of Facility and Parks Operations. Thank you for being here today, Charlotte.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. My presentation might be fairly brief because I want to allow lots of time to get feedback on this project.
I just want to make sure, is your mic on?
Excuse me for that. So great to be here. My name is Charlotte. I'm the Acting Director of Parks and Facility Operations. And I said my presentation might be fairly brief because there's lots of opportunity to give feedback on this. It's something where we're still developing the protocol and the guidelines. So I want to hear what everybody's got to say. So just to speak about this project, what is accessible wayfinding? Well, we've got several goals, and the project is quite important to us because signage is important. This project is about signage, and signage is important because it shows you when you're in a park how we feel about the park. It's informational, and it shows us how we feel about you as well. So if you're in a park and you're not able to read the sign or access the information, it shows you that we're not thinking about you and all of our parks users. And we have a real opportunity with Westwood Lake because we have the opportunity to set a new standard, which is something we want to do and get out ahead of the game and start doing things differently there. So the goals of our project are to create greater connectivity and better wayfinding throughout our parks, increase legibility and accessibility information so people can know when they're out and about on the trails what they're going to be experiencing in the parks before they get there, and also to develop a guideline that can be used in other parks. So that's where we're going to be standing on the shoulders of what we achieve with Westwood Lake to develop a playbook that we can roll out in other locations. But signage is just so important, and you can see here because we've got this opportunity at Westwood Lake. Like, I'm calling it an opportunity, that's a really polite word for it. So we clearly know we can do so much better than some of these examples. And with all of the work that we're doing at Westwood Lake, it's a high value project, and we want to continue that through into the signage as well. And accessibility is really, really key. So the playbook that we're going to be developing here is something that I hope we can bring through into all of our destination parks and eventually all of our parks as well. So we've been working with Kelsey from Tula, who you guys have met before, and she's been really attuned to accessibility needs and done quite a bit of research. And we were also looking at inspiration and where signage has been done well in other parks. What you can see here is informational signage, which is at the right eye level. There's also some QR codes, so you can scan it and get up-to-date information that's available online. Maybe on a QR code, somebody can be talking to you and tell you, within the next 500 meters on this paved trail, you will experience an incline and give that kind of information. And there's also potential to include Braille as well. So some of our research to date is, which Kelsey has undertaken, was around how everybody experiences signage in parks, how everybody experiences signage in parks. And so she has taken the time to look at different eye levels and think about where it makes sense to place the information on the sign. And it's different for men, women, wheelchair users and children. But we know that we've got this really important band in the centre there where you've got to get your key messaging in that area, which is where it's in most people's eye level. Also, it can be difficult for wheelchair users, we understand, to be always having to raise the head to look up. So you want to get the really important information on that eye level. And then the lesser value information, which might be things about, dogs on leash rather than the map and stuff that might go somewhere outside of those areas. And so this was our key research that we've been using to develop the basis of our playbook. And our work so far has led us to develop the basis for what will be a kiosk sign. So when you first come into a park, this is a sign that welcomes you. You and your family might stand there and understand more about the park and get excited and feel welcomed. And then later on, you'll be at an arrival point. So you know something about the park, but now you need to know where to go. And that is also there on the arrival signage. And then later and throughout the park, there's further directional signage for pedestrians and wheelchair users. And then also other wayfinding signs that you might find along trails, like trails markers, regulatory signs, and some interpretive signage. So right now, we're working at this kind of level for Westwood Lake, but I really would like your feedback on this and our research that we've based it on, because we still have time to make changes. And then the next phase, once we've got approval and people's acceptance of this type of work, we'll begin to plug in the actual information for our signs at Westwood Lake. But it's important we get this right, because, like I said, it's something that we're hoping to roll out into all of our destination parks and other parks. So really keen to hear your feedback. Well, like I said, we're going to develop the guideline, pilot it at Westwood, and then go from there. So please let me know your feedback and questions.
Sean.
Thank you for that. That's exciting. I love new signage. Just point of clarity, it seems like we're using the terms wayfinding and signage interchangeably. So are you talking about signage or are you talking about wayfinding?
I'm talking about wayfinding signage.
Okay, so just the signage in the context
Yes.
of wayfinding, because signage is an important part of it, but there's
Yes.
other stuff that makes spaces
Absolutely.
accessible, audio beacons. So like when I look at the accessibility standards that are currently the federal standards that are in draft, and they'll be similar provincially, they're talking about tactile surfaces, cues, lighting, audible beacons, that sort of thing. But I understand that we're talking about signage. So I'll skip my first three questions and just because not all spaces can be accessible.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So first question or point of feedback is to ensure that the signage is in a way to identify which spaces are accessible and which spaces are not, and to do it in a way that maintains dignity. Like, we don't want to have someone, the symbol for a mobility user with a circle and a line through it or whatever, because it's not accessible, but ensuring that spaces are marked at key decision-making points so that people don't look at a sign and say, oh, I love the trail, and then they get there and like, oh, it's not accessible. So that we do that with dignity is an important part. And just to make sure that, because part of this is a lot of signs are written in predominant languages, right? So many of the examples are written in English, and I think we are a big tourism economy here in Nanaimo, so we do have a lot of international visitors. We have a lot of people here for whom English is not their first language. So ensuring that as many of the signs as possible are done using wayfinding symbols that don't require knowledge of English to navigate spaces.
Brilliant. Thank you.
But I'm very excited for wayfinding stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy.
Was the Tula group using a standard size?
Sorry, can you just use...
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Hello. Do you know if they were using a standard size wheelchair? Was it like looking at different heights of wheelchairs, things like that? Was that kind of like brought into it?
I would have to check into that. Thank you very much. I haven't asked
I mean,
that
I know
question.
it's like a big, broad space. Like it's not just like a pinpoint. Do you know what I mean? Here's the eye level, but it looks like, you know, they're using 24-inch wheels or like something kind of thing like standard. But it'd be interesting to know, you know, what that looks like and what's the data in terms of, you know, average size of wheelchairs or, you know, different sizes, different scooters, different power chairs. You know, you can have seat elevators. Like there's lots of options. So it'd be interesting to see.
And
I work with pediatrics, so I often have like smaller wheelchairs.
so can I ask a follow-up question to you? What would your expectation be that the best way to do this would be to have the guideline based on the standard wheelchair size?
I think you could do that, just given the use of, you know, pictures and symbols and things like that would be appropriate with like really high contrast, all those kind of things would be appropriate if they were at, you know, the standard wheelchair user height. I think that would be good. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want somebody to touch something, that's a little bit different, I think.
Right.
So, yeah, I think those considerations need to be taken into account.
Thank you. I'll speak with Tula about that.
Bay.
Hi, I was just wondering, you mentioned something about scanning QR codes and then having sort of a guided auditory system. I just wanted to bring up that there's limited Wi-Fi and data accessibility in a lot of parks. So how would you maybe handle that?
That's a great point. It certainly only works in locations where there is internet connectivity. At Westwood Lake, I believe for the most part, we're looking okay. We've got pretty good connectivity out there. And I'm aware that, you know, our parks where we might struggle with that might be out on Hammond Bay Road, Neck Point Park. But I believe that they are actually doing another 5G tower out there soon. So I think we won't have that connectivity issue in too many of our parks.
Sean?
Yeah, just a thought around like adding Braille to signs, which I think is excellent. I guess I would ask, so you'd still need someone there with you to tell you where the signs were. So if there are beacons connected to those key wayfinding points so that someone who's visually impaired can get to the sign and read what's on it, I think that is an important consideration.
Yes.
Yeah, any opportunity so that people with disabilities or people with accessibility needs can interact without support as much. And obviously being mindful of noise pollution, you know, things that beep make noise, and it's not always what people go to those spaces for, but it's a compromise that I think would create a more accessible space. Thanks.
Thank you.
Alexandria?
I know we're not at this point yet, but as to the language that's actually included on the signs, when it comes time to finalize that copy before having the signs printed, is there a plan, or is it standard practice to have that language run through a plain language expert or someone with an eye to accessibility in mind? I just wanted to check on that.
Do you know, I don't know that it is our standard practice. I can't speak to that. I don't know. Is it, Lara? Do you know? No, I don't believe it is. But I think that's an absolute excellent suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bay?
I was just wondering about signs, about symbols for signs, because you mentioned that there are a lot of tourists, especially in the waterfront, and symbols can be a little more universal, like our do not harvest shellfish, the pretty clear kind of poison X through it and stuff.
Thank you. Yes, the use of symbols is very, they can say 1,000 words in a picture.
Linda, did you have a question? I saw you. And there you go.
Yeah, I was muted. I'd like to see this all again when you have something to show.
Right.
I'm great that people are excited. It's lovely people are excited, but there's nothing to look at. So font size matters, boldness matters, the height of the letters matter. The A few blind people read Braille, so often it's better to have a tactile sign with raised letters or raised icons on it that people can feel. Or you do both. The Braille has to be very tiny, the icons can be big. CNIB has a lot of guidelines for signage for people who have less sight, because not everybody is blind when they have visual issues. And so in terms of running it by an expert, I think this committee is the experts. And I'd just like to see some prototypes and some ideas. High contrast matters immensely. So you don't put signs, white on dark is much easier to read than dark on light, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be my pleasure to come back with some concepts of actually some filled out signs, and we can have a look at that together as well. That would be
Yeah,
great.
it would be great to see an example. And yeah, thank you for that point, Linda. Tammy?
I just wanted to comment on the surrounding area of the sign. Like you've got this great, you could have a great sign, but what's the accessibility like getting to the sign, and what's the lighting like at the area of the sign? I'm not sure what the numbers are on the example where you have the different people's heights. Like there's like a 1,000 from the eyes to the sign. Is that?
Could I have that
Is that
back up
centimeters?
so I can
Is
speak to that?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you can't really see it from, no, the one with the wheelchairs and
Yeah.
yeah. Do you see on the bottom, it's got like different heights. It's got like a 900 sign. Is that centimeters maybe?
Yeah, it's millimeters.
Millimeters? Yeah.
It's our visioning of where you would put the different information on the different signs. So speaking about the important information, you want to put that within the eye line of most people. And so that's that central zone that's coloured green on the first sign.
Okay.
Because that's like the line where you're able to capture most people's line of vision. And then below that, the yellow line marks the regulatory signage area where you might put the information which, people need to be aware of, but it's not necessarily connected to safety or wayfinding. And then below that, you've got the no information zone, because nobody's eye line really wants to look at anything that's 40 centimetres from the ground. So the optimal eye line is no more than 2,400 millimetres. That was according to the research that we undertook, which was actually taken from the BC Parks and Rec Association on signage, so and accessibility.
Okay, thank you.
But your point about the substrate in which the sign is placed is really well heard as well, because that's obviously what we're doing here at Westwood Lake, is that surface is going to be rollable and walkable, and so the signage will be placed in those locations. And it's something that we find with more complexity in other parks. You put a picnic bench, but not everybody can get up to the picnic bench, and so we need to be getting better at those things.
Well, thank you to the committee members for your feedback on this presentation. Thank you very much, Charlotte, for your presentation.
My pleasure. Yeah, that was very useful for me. Thank you very much. I'll take that away and use it on the next stage.
So we'll get to see you again when we have a prototype to check out. Okay, and
Happily.
you're actually up next as well with a verbal update on Moby mats.
Yes, that's great. So based on the feedback from this committee rather, the Moby mats have been left in. So they would have ordinarily been taken out just around Labour Day weekend or thereafter. And they've been left in. So I just want to let you know that they're all still there. And we've checked in on how they're doing. They're performing relatively well. They're requiring a little bit more clean off in some of our beaches, Neck Point Park and Departure Bay Beach, a little more detritus on them. But they're all still there and they haven't washed away. So that's great. And long may they stay there. So that's the plan. Does anybody get any questions about the Moby mats or?
The only thing I see is if it gets icy. It might be a hazard.
Absolutely. We have
So
that.
can you heat them?
We have ice signage out there in our parks because it is an issue. Absolutely. I would hope maybe in some of those locations that they may not, particularly down on the waterfront, on the ocean rather. But yes, we'll have to watch for ice. So I guess we'll see because they weren't out there this time last year.
Sean?
Yeah, so I'm glad the Moby mats are out, and I hope that this can, I mean, it's certainly on my radar to talk about, like, we have those beach spaces that are accessible now, and there's so many that are still not accessible at all, and so this is a good example of how we can, make a small change and make more spaces accessible year round. And I hope this leads to conversations around, now that we've addressed that, how do we make all beach spaces accessible so that people can access them equitably? But that's excellent that it's working. So very happy to hear it.
Sarah, did you have a question online?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I saw you pop in the video there, so I wondered if
Oh,
you...
no, I was just trying to be present, that's
Oh.
all. But
Lovely.
I do want to say that I often do use the Moby mats all year round, and thank you for keeping them.
That's great to hear. Well, it was great feedback to get from the committee, and I think it's just been, it was an easy one, right? So that's great. It's a quick win.
Cool. Yeah, and it shows the responsiveness of staff to the committee recommendations, and we're all working on this together. So thanks, everyone, for that. So next up, under reports, we have a review update on our Leisure Economic Access Pass with Darcy Osborne. Thank you, Darcy.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here to provide you with an update on our Leisure Economic Access Path review. That is the purpose of what the report you received was about. Here to go through the review recommendations that were done in 2020 and 2021. Of which is important to note that this committee had significant involvement in going through and coming up with the 14 recommendations that we're about to review today. So to start off with, I will just take you through what my presentation looks like. I'm going to give you an update on what LEAP is. I will review the recommendations. We will look at the statistics from 2011 through to 2024, and we will have lots of time at the end of this presentation for questions and feedback. All right, so what is LEAP? The City of Nanaimo's Leisure Economic Access Pass, LEAP, supports residents living below the poverty line to access parks, recreation, and culture programs and services. It started in 1993 with the purpose of all citizens of Nanaimo shall have access to programs and services provided by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, regardless of their ability to pay. And the key point there is all citizens. It's open to residents of the City of Nanaimo, District of Lanceville, and the Regional District of Nanaimo electoral areas A, B, and C. What does a LEAP Pass include? So if you have a LEAP Pass, you have 50 free admissions per year, per person, for drop-in swimming, skating, weight rooms, and drop-in gymnasium programs, for example, at Oliver Woods. And new, as well, as part of this process, we also have free admission to the Nanaimo Art Gallery and the Nanaimo Museum and the Bastion during the summer season. It involves subsidies of 50% off a registered program or a membership of a maximum of up to $40 for each family member up to 4 times a year per person. So a membership could be, for example, the Harbor City Seniors or a rec pass, a recreation pass, which is a pass into our skating and swimming and drop-in programs. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So under review, the LEAP review was conducted in 2020 and 2021 with the previous accessibility committee. It was conducted and it recommended 14 changes, and they were all approved following this committee's review by Mayor and Council. The overall goals of the LEAP recommendations are to reduce barriers and increase participation. And I think those are very equal in our determination. So at this point, I'm going to go through all 14 of the recommendations. There's a lot of information, but if you would like to just save your questions and feedback, we can review them at the end of the 14. So number 1 was to no longer include additional income on top of the notice of assessment and NOA. So that would include the tax benefit, spousal support, or rental income. That has been completed and we no longer require that. Number 2, to no longer require a TD1 for income under $9,000. We have also completed that task. Number 3 is make the application process easier by reducing the amount of support documentation to 1 piece of photo ID, proof of residency, and proof of eligibility. We've completed that process. Provide an option for applying online. We've completed that process. Number 5, revise and simplify the application form to make it easily understandable. And Laura and I made a note of having it review through what was it? The plain language. It was a great comment and recommendation. So we've made a review to go back and have that application.
Oh, it was.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was reviewed. I misunderstood that. But what we also did was we took the form from being two-sided that had multiple frequently asked question information and a very complex multi-page document and turned it into a single plain language with bullet points, one-page document. And hopefully, and we've had great success and feedback from people on that one. Number 6 is to offer private appointments for applicants to discuss the program with a recreation coordinator or our business service supervisor, privately or by phone in person. And we recognize the importance of the confidentiality and the dignity that goes with having that phone conversation or having that one-on-one private conversation. And so we've completed that process. Number 7 is to allow a one-time top-up 50 punch for all drop-ins once they're used. Oh, so a top-up, sorry. Allow a one-time top-up of the 50 punches. So previously, if you used your 50 punches, at the end of the year, that was it. We did not top them up. But what we recognize is that some people were a little bit almost afraid to use them because they might run out or they might need them more closer to the end of the year. And they were not utilizing them for fear of running out of them, which worked in the complete opposite of what we were trying to accomplish. So we have recognized that if you go through your 50 punches, yay, and congratulations. We're really happy that you're getting the service and that you're able to enjoy the Rec Pass, and we are happy to top them up with another 50. It's almost a little bit of a challenge now. Number 8 is to provide alternate options for proof of need other than the notice of assessment. So basically pre-approvals for folks who have already been financially scrutinized by another level of government and are already deemed low income. We felt that we were just redoing a lot and putting people through a process that they've already been through. And if they had already gone through the process by a recognized organization, that we should be able to recognize that as well. So that includes income social assistance, child and youth care, guaranteed income supplement for seniors, refugee newcomers with emergency landing documents, or community living BC clients. There's no financial documents required to be handed in for the pre-approval applicants, just a visual confirmation is required at the time of the application, and we no longer take copies, and that's also very important for us on our end not to be holding on to information about people's personal financials. We've also reduced, I made note, we've reduced the application timeline from, it used to take up to 7 to 10 days, and now it's time of application. So reducing how long that process takes. And number 9, for folks in a situation is unlikely to change in a 1-year period, we issue a 2-year LEAP pass to reduce the requirements to reapply every 2 years. and we just basically doubled their entitlements. And I think that this has been quite successful, and people appreciate it. If we can recognize that you're not going to have a change in your situation within a year, why should we have you come back and go through that process all over again? Number 10, to create a process for adjudicators or agency referrals. We have done it with 2 agencies so far, the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and the Nanaimo Family Life Association. And we'll be meeting next Wednesday, actually, with another potential pilot project, but is an organization that works locally with children and family, and we're hoping to be able to roll that one out as well. We also do referrals for children in youth care through their social workers, and so they would be on that list of pre-approvals. Oh, no, back. Number 11, work with the city-owned facilities. I mentioned that we currently work with the Nanaimo Art Gallery, the Nanaimo Museum, and the Bastion, which is part of the Nanaimo Museum operation. And they were very quick to hop on this opportunity and happy to be part of this LEAP program, so that anyone who comes with a LEAP card to those facilities has free access. There we go. Number 12, research options for reducing transportation barriers. So we have had meetings with the Active Transportation, Save Nanaimo Active Transportation, and with the Regional District of Nanaimo to try to see what we can do to reduce some of those barriers. And we recently started selling the UMO passes, which is the payment method for riding local transit, at all 5 of our rec centers and at this building here, the Resource Center. We are receiving a commission back from transit, and it's a small commission, but it is a commission nonetheless. And so we're hoping at the end of the year, we will be able to have a good sense of how much commission that will be, and that we can utilize that small pot of money to help some people to purchase their LEAP cards or bus passes for LEAP clients. I always want to click it. Number 13 is to research how post-secondary students could be included in the LEAP program, and if there's a partnership possibility with VIU. We haven't gotten fully invested in this one yet, but we hope to. It is in our work plan, and next on the list to tackle. And finally, the last one, number 14, is to create a marketing and communications plan and connect with key organizations and community partners. This is intentional why we haven't done this one. We felt that it's very important for us to have made that initial contact with all of the local community organizations that work with children and family. We felt that it would be in the best interest of everybody for us to have completed this whole process where we've eliminated as many barriers as possible, and to be able to put the information out there in a wholesome way where we're actually ready and prepared to greet people in a mindful and respectful way when they come through. At the moment, what we do to promote the Leisure Economic Access Pass is we do it through flyers, through our activity guide, and on our city website. So those are all the 14 that we have been working on implementing as a result of the review. And what we have seen since we started doing this is a tremendous growth in participation, which we're very excited about. In 2011, we had our highest membership so far in LEAP, and we had 2,556. That number was declining, and what was occurring at that time was we were recognizing there was some fraudulent behavior occurring within our community, and what we did was perhaps put in too many barriers to try to deal with the fraudulent behavior, and as a result, we were creating a situation that was more difficult for people who really needed the service to actually access it. So that's what sparked the review. When we saw the decline in 2020, we felt like we needed to go back and readdress it and find a way to reduce the barriers, but still be able to recognize when some of the behavior was perhaps not ethical. And we recognize that there's probably always going to be a little bit of that going on, but at the end of the day, what is more important for us is to have the participation and to have those people who were in need to have access, as opposed to the 1 or 2 people who might be trying to cheat the system. So we kind of shifted our way of thinking. And so you can see by this chart that our numbers are now are starting to increase. And since we started the review in 2020 and 2021, we have gone up 44%, and we are now at 2,587. And how recent is that number, Laura?
That was last week.
Last week. So that's very recent. So in conclusion, the goals of the recommendation were to reduce barriers and increase participation, and we've seen that, and we really appreciate wholeheartedly the feedback and input that we received from the committee in terms of helping us to identify what the barriers were, and we're very, very pleased to see the increase in participation and hope that that will continue. The recommendations aim to reduce the stigma of people to apply and by lowering the amount of financial scrutiny. And I think we've really put a lot of effort into that. And it is also something that we believe is important in how we manage our operation and not retaining a lot of those financial records. The changes have been very well received, and we have two of our staff who work directly with our LEAP clients. I mentioned our business services supervisor and one of our recreation coordinators, and the feedback that they get is extremely positive and appreciative. The city will continue to help people living in poverty in Nanaimo to access the recreation facilities through the LEAP program and as per the city plan and the integrated action plan. And so we definitely, the success of this program has been very positive. And we also, I should note, we do continue to offer a number of different programs and services at no cost to our citizens through sponsorship opportunities, for example, our Lions free skates and swims. And we do try to identify different special events throughout the year that we can offer without price tags. And I believe that you've had presentation from our recreation department that have talked about the free family fun nights and the different events that we run through our community. So we, where we support the LEAP program and are pleased to see its growth, we will always try to provide free services as well for the citizens through different events. So in conclusion, I am very happy to answer any questions that you might have about the LEAP review and where we're at and the process that we've taken.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Sarah and then Tanya to start.
Thank you. Three things. So first of all, through my nonprofit, I work directly with a number of families with children living in poverty. And I just wanted to say that the reduction of access barriers as far as qualifying for the program has been very well received by my clients. I am encouraged to see that you are considering focusing on communication and marketing, because I find that often I'm the first person who's ever told my clients about the LEAP program. And that's really unfortunate, because I think it's definitely a gem and it shouldn't be a hidden gem. So yes, I'm very pleased to, and I understand you're trying to do things in a systematic and rational way, which I'm 100% on board with, but I do think communication and marketing to promote this gift is definitely something that will be welcome. I'm just wondering, as far as, it's wonderful that we've got the art gallery, the museum, the Bastion. Are there any other organizations or services that you're thinking to add at this point?
That's a good, well, first of all, thank you. It's nice to hear the feedback and to know that it is being received well from your perspective. Mm-hmm. And the communication piece is very key, and we definitely hope to get that information out. It's one of those things where we often hear from people, I didn't know. And so continuing through every avenue that you have to share the message is very much appreciated through members of this committee as well. We have talked to one other organization specifically, the Port Theatre, that we would like to be able to try to see if we could engage in some further opportunities to have LEAP benefit, but we haven't been able to get to that at this point. And I think I would be welcome, or I would offer the question out there, if anybody has any other ideas of suggestions locally of partners that we could address and talk to about the LEAP program, if you could let us know, that would be helpful.
And I just have one other question. I'm sorry, I'll try not to monopolize.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm just curious what the process is when you're working with other organizations to be a referring agency. are they referring clients and then you're not requiring that financial piece? Or are they signing them up completely?
I think it's both, right?
We're just signing them up based on referral, just honor system.
Okay, so we're just signing them up based on referral
Okay.
from that organization, based on the honor system. And I think that goes back again to that philosophy of, we don't believe that these referral organizations are going to be trying to do anything other than support their clients. And so we're there to help with that.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanya?
Thank you, and I'm going to actually piggyback on what Sarah just said. I am wondering, and forgive me if you did say this, I had an audio problem here a little while ago. Is the school district someone who can sign folks up for, like our school counselors or child and youth care workers, who can help a family do the signing up for?
Not at thank you, Tanya. Not at this point, but they are on the list of one of those organizations that we feel that we should have that conversation with at some point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what that would be, I think, a huge, I just know, and I'm just going to, forgive me, I won't take too long, but in fact, there was a time when I first got involved in schools, 97 right through to the early 2000s, where some of Parks and Rec programs were actually decentralized, and we worked in partnership and actually offered the programs in our multi-purpose rooms at schools, particularly for those families who live in areas of the community, of all area A, B, and C, where it's difficult to get to the centralized locations like Bowen Park and Bevan Park and Oliver Woods. So families in Cedar, sometimes families in Harewood. So I know that I'm speaking for myself personally here, but it's always been a dream of mine to try to get some of that back.
Thank you. And I'm looking at Amanda because I believe we're running some programs called our Spare Blocks program, which is for the older elementary school children and the junior high school children or young teens. But I hear what you're saying, and it definitely is something in our work plans and actually in our city plan to try to have more of our recreation programs out in the different neighborhood nodes and throughout the different school district opportunities. So I hear you, and we'll keep working on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question from Sean and then Bay.
Thank you. Yes, love the LEAP card, love all of these changes. It's really exciting and it is very well received, particularly in the world of adult disability service, CLBC referred clients particularly. My first question, I guess, okay, so I do like the idea that it's been reduced from 1 year to 2 years, and I like the idea that it's simplified for people who have already gone through some rigorous financial assessments. Those processes can be really damaging and traumatizing, so that you remove those is excellent. I just wonder about, for those same, when you've removed that, what the renewal process looks like. Like, is it a simplified renewal process wherein you sort of just confirm that nothing has changed and then continue on with service? Or is it a similar where you have to go through sort of the same process every 2 years? And if that could be looked at further, if not, because I mean, there's some people certainly for whom things do change over 2 years. There's some people for whom things will never change. They're always going to experience disability. They're always going to experience poverty in similar levels, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it's not really going to change over time. So some consideration around that process. So like a lifetime LEAP membership or really just simplified, do you still need this? Yes, great, done, kind of thing. So I wonder if that's been thought about.
I think I can say that at the moment, the process is still the same to renew. However, we're hoping that we have made the process so much more simpler that it isn't as difficult in the end. But I appreciate your comments, and I think that that's something that we can take a look at in terms of a longer renewal or a simplified renewal. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. My second question, okay, so this is just going to be sort of a structural or a business question. So you own these facilities and then you contract people to manage them. So can you maybe tell me what the barrier is to requiring the people who operate these facilities that the city owns to accept a LEAP card?
So I'm guessing that you're talking about the cultural partners, like the.
Any, so yeah, when we talk about, so in here it talks about work with other city-owned facility operators to expand the LEAP program offerings to include our culture partners. So you talked about the Port Theatre and that hasn't been a conversation you've had yet. And so if this is a city-owned facility, can you, city, just not say, by the way, Port Theatre, now you accept the LEAP card? This is a requirement of all city-owned facilities and culture partners is to accept this because it's a priority. So there's probably a lot of stuff I don't understand around why you can't do that. And I'm hoping maybe, if that's something that you could explain.
So most of these facilities, not all of them, but most of them either operate under leases, licenses, or co-management agreements. And so what we've been doing is, as we get to the point of renewing an agreement, is initiating the conversation with them, unless it's one that's an extremely long agreement and it wouldn't be wise for us to not discuss it sooner. So I think that's sort of where at this point, the method that we've been utilizing. But it's an interesting idea and it's an interesting criteria for you to suggest. So I think we can, again, have some further conversation around that. Most of our leases, licenses, and co-management agreements, most of the people we work with are really happy to support LEAP or a number of the different initiatives that we bring forward. So I don't know that we're going to have too much pushback from them. It's just a matter of us having the time to work through the process with them. Oh, and Laura has something to add?
I'll try my...
Yeah.
It's dead. Oh, it's dead. I'll just tell you then.
There you go.
Sorry, I have anxiety, which is why Darcy does my presentations for me. But I'd like to answer that question because we have had the conversation with Port Theatre and they are extremely excited about supporting the LEAP program. We just haven't worked through what that would look like yet, and which programs and how people would access it. And they do already have a program in place for low-income families, so we thought we might be able to tie into that. So they are excited. We just haven't worked through what it would look like yet.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Bay and then Tammy.
Yeah, I have two questions. The first, well, one isn't really a question, but the first one is you mentioned LEAP holders can get some sort of support towards their UMO pass. Can you elaborate about that?
Okay, so we are currently selling the UMO passes in our facilities, and with BC Transit, we receive a commission in return. We don't know what that's going to look like until we go through a full we've only been doing it for a month, until we go through a full year, have a concept of what that actually might equate to. And at that point, we are looking at the possibility of having the ability for us to purchase bus passes for LEAP clients in need with that pot of funding.
Okay, all right. The other thing was just about registration for programs that are in the activity guide. It's highly competitive, especially for children's programs. And if you're not ready to click the buttons like midnight the day it's going live, sometimes you just can't get anything. And I wondered if you might create a system where you hold a few seats for families who have disabilities or who are on the LEAP pass, because it's so competitive, especially with online registration. If you don't have internet or you've gone over your data, whatever the situation, you can miss out on an entire half a year of potential programs. So I wondered if there's anything you can do towards setting some aside.
So I generally appreciate your feedback on that. About a year ago, we had a situation where the return to our programs and the demand for our programs coming out of the pandemic was very high. And we established a committee to look at what we could do to make it more accessible, because we realized that if you were tech savvy, that you had the ability to hop online right at 6 a.m. and nab some of those key things, specifically aquatics being the #1 program that we were seeing a mass need for. So what our committee did is looked at how we could make our registration or our activity guide release more accessible to people in our community. So we did several things, but one of the things we did is we actually pulled aquatics out, and we do registration a week earlier for aquatics because it was bogging down our system. And so now we have an aquatic registration day, which runs 1 week prior to, and so that has helped. We also decided that we needed to open all of our facilities at 6 a.m. in the morning at the same time that we were going live online, so that people who don't have access to credit cards or have the technology could visually be standing in front of one of our clerks that could help them register for a program at the same time as people who were going online. And we didn't really know how that would go over, because we thought we didn't know how people would feel about getting out of bed at 6 in the morning, and if that was going to be something of interest. But we had a really great turnout, and we created a situation where we had coffee and refreshments, and we made it a welcoming environment. And the Harbour City Seniors, the Bowen Complex, had over 20 seniors all waiting waiting right there at 6 a.m. to register for programs. Oliver Woods Community Center also had several people in the lobby, all happily there in person registering. So we recognize that there's lots of barriers that sort of 6 a.m. going online registration made for people, even though other people it removed the barriers. Maybe those parents that had children that couldn't get out of bed and leave their children at home. And, there's the multiple different considerations that we had. So we set it up where we had the registration open, the facilities, all 5 facilities open at 6 a.m. for in-person. We added an extra switchboard operator. So we added so instead of having 1 switchboard operator trying to manage all of the calls, we had 2. And I can tell you the horror behind it, because we opened that switchboard at 6 a.m. as well, whereas previously our switchboard opened at 8:30, and our switchboard operator walked into 180 voice messages prior to that. So having the 2 switchboard operators starting at 6 a.m., having all the facilities open at 6 a.m., eliminated that big burst. We also took a look at all of our clerks, and who have various different responsibilities throughout the course of their week. We dedicated them all on that first day from 6 a.m. until noon, specifically to calling people back and answering questions and working through the process of registration with anyone who might be dealing with complications. And that also was well received. And what we saw was we were down to where we had pages and pages of callbacks and people waiting sometimes more than a day to get a callback from someone. On that very first day, when we started this new process, we were down to less than 15 minutes for a callback, and we had no call-out sheets going dispersed to our clerks after noon that day. However, our registration numbers were even higher, and our program numbers were even higher. So it was very successful, and we were very pleased with the outcome. We have recognized that we're not there yet, and that there's probably still things that we can do to make ourselves more accessible for our customers and clients. And so this committee continues to meet and review each registration process as we go through. And the next one is November 20th. And so we will have registration a week earlier for aquatics. So I guess that would be November. Well, when is that?
Aquatics went fall winter, so.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We did aquatics, so it was fall and winter all in one. So if people didn't get into their session in the fall, they could get into a session in the winter. So that's why but our registration for our winter programs is coming up next week on the Wednesday, the 20th. So if you have thoughts and feedback, by all means, please let us know. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, Amanda has one. The other thing we did is we did not go after during the pandemic. We went all online with our activity guide because of the concern of spread, and so we heard from the public that some people really do like to leaf through an activity guide. And so this is the first time since our pandemic that we actually have a printed guide. And so we will have printed guides in our facilities and throughout the community. This is what it looks like. Councillor Eastmere is holding it up, Eastmere. And it's for registration starting next week. And I also want to say that it is the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Activity Guide, and we often refer to it as Registration Day, but really it's the release of our activity guide, which is full of all of the wholesome Parks, Recreation, and Culture services and programs that we offer our community. Yeah. Okay, Laura's telling me guides are available after Friday of this week.
Okay. There is one more thing I wondered about. With the LEAP Pass, you have their email addresses. And I wondered about sending out just an automatic message when there is a new activity guide coming out, and then a bit of a reminder that the registration date is approaching.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't too often go through the website of Parks and Recs to see. Like sometimes I'll go and I'm like, oh, surprise, there's a new
surprise.
So.
I see Laura writing it down. Laura's our business service manager, which is why she's vast knowledge of information here. We do try not to spam our customers with a lot of emails, but we have other venues where we can put the information out through the weekly City of Nanaimo newsletter that goes out online that you could subscribe to. And I noticed that Laura has taken a note, and we can talk about whether or not we want to send out a reminder to people or not. So,
Thank you. Tammy.
Okay, this sounds great. And I have some questions, I guess. So is the LEAP Pass for the family, or is it attached to a child?
It's individual.
The family, it for the whole family.
Okay, but the individual entitlements, but it could be for the whole family. The family receives it, but there's individual entitlements for each member of the family.
For each member of the family?
Yeah.
So if a family has 6 kids and 3 are in care, is that's they get one LEAP Pass kind of thing with 50 punches? Or
Each person.
Each-
And each person has the $40 eligibility. For the
I see. Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
So a whole family of 6 can all get 50 punches and then,
each.
yeah.
I see. Okay. And I'm not sure that children and youth actually know about it or have it. I know I've set up like therapy in the pool at the NAC or at Bevan, and I just kind of like meet them kind of thing. As I'll meet in the universal change room, but I do think that some of them are paying. So I don't know if that's something that the social workers or need more information about, or I don't know.
Okay, that's good to know. We can reach out, and certainly once we do our communication plan, that's one we can target.
Okay. You could also come to our staff meeting at the CDC. That would be great.
I am offering lunch and learns.
Laura is offering lunch and learns.
Yeah, the Nanaimo Child Development Center, I think, would be a good resource to come
Put
to.
on our list. Thank you, Tammy.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions at this time from committee members, so thank you for all of the feedback and questions, and thank you, Darcy, for the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. That was excellent information. Thank you very much.
We're all clapping for the LEAP program. And don't leave yet, because you're up again to introduce our local community accessibility grant presentation.
All right. I would like to introduce to you Mr. Mike Bryson, who is our Manager of Recreation Facilities and Custodial Services. I think you've all met Mike before. Mike is here today to seek direction from the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness on a grant application for the Local Community Accessibility Grant, the grant, funded by the Province of BC and offered by the Social Planning and Research Council of BC. Mike has a recommendation to go over with you in regards to application for this grant and what we might utilize the funds for. So, please come up.
Thank you, Darcy, and welcome, Mike Bryson. Thank you for being here.
Hello, it's good to see you all again. Just what Darcy said, with the report that is put forward is a recommendation for the advisory committee to support an application for the local community local community accessibility grant, the amount of $24,052 to purchase and install 7 assistive hearing devices for wickets at the front counters of all 5 recreation centers, that being Bevan Pool, Nanaimo Ice Center, Nanaimo Aquatic Center, Oliver Woods Community Center, and Bone Complex. As well, recommend that council provide a letter in support of the city's application to SPARC of BC. A little bit of background on that. The reason why we've made this recommendation, we did a pilot of some assistive hearing devices at 2 of our complexes. We did them at Bone Complex and at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, and have had great success with those devices in those locations. So this grant is available as $25,000 that we can use towards this type of initiative, and we felt that this is a real good opportunity to put these types of devices in all of our facilities so that anyone that goes to any one of our complexes that has some hearing issues will be able to access to our frontline staff, and so we thought this would be a great initiative to follow through with. So that is the recommendation that is on the table right now. So I'll open it up to any questions if you have anything you want to discuss or questions.
Alexandria.
Thank you. I understand that the assistive hearing devices is a project that we've heard about before, and a very worthy one. I'm wondering if there are other initiatives that are on our to-do list that were under consideration. Was there a short list for what we might apply this grant against? And if so, what were they, please?
There's certainly other options we could look at. I think what we've discussed previously in my reporting to this group, there are a multitude of different areas we could apply funding to, and we are applying funding to. If you remember, we received $82,000 from the Rick Hansen Foundation that we applied to different various projects and other facilities. We've come to the end of that process, but in continuation with that process, or from that process, we've just completed an audit at the Oliver Woods Community Center, as well as the Nanaimo Ice Center. So we've completed audits of those 2 facilities, and from those reports will come recommendations for other initiatives to make those facilities more accessible. So that's kind of where we're going with all the other facilities. This is just one that we thought, we have this money, it's a one-time grant opportunity, and this takes care of that one need that we have in the community right now. We certainly will look at other initiatives, and we certainly will applying funds to other accessibility issues in other facilities, and we'll see those, and they'll be identified through the audit process. So we are looking at that. As I said, we just finished Oliver Woods, including the playground outside. We've just finished the Nanaimo Ice Center. The one from Oliver Woods is back at the Rick Hansen Foundation with the adjudicator to finalize, and then we'll have the recommendations from that one. The Nanaimo Aquatic Center Nanaimo Ice Center was just completed. So Roxman Stadium is on next up in line for that. We will be going back to the complexes we did initially. So that was Bone Complex, Frank Crane Arena, and Nanaimo Aquatic Center. Those will be reassessed now that we've done all the improvements we have to the facilities. So that the process, I think, is good, and we're systematically going through all of our facilities, and we'll identify the areas that need to have some concern. And of course, this group will be well apprised of everything we come up with and have an opportunity to discuss the initiatives as we bring them forward. Other part is I passed my exam. So I'm officially, now I can audit some of these facilities. So we have engaged the services of a fellow, Cliff Feng is his name. He's excellent. He's very thorough. I've done a couple of complexes with him now, and I'll continue to do complexes with him with the intention of that it will become a staff function. Maybe not me all the time, but we have some other staff that are taking on the same type of training. So we'll have 2 or 3 other staff in the city that can take on these audits and and just keep this ball rolling. So that's the plan.
Thank you.
Tammy?
Is the wickets out here, do they have the technology in place here at SARC?
I don't believe SARC has that yet.
Okay.
Right now, we're tackling all of our recreation complexes. Civic facilities will be on the next phase of this, but this covers all of our recreation complexes.
Okay, so there isn't any of this technology in Nanaimo at all, at any of the, like, wickets, other than in this room?
No, sorry, we've applied this to Bowen Complex.
Oh, you have? Okay.
And we've got some at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. So we do have some in place already.
Okay.
That we did as a pilot project. This just, with this $25,000 grant, it just kind of worked into, that's what the amount that we need was $24,052 to do the rest of the recreation complexes.
I see. Do they, so if people have hearing devices, do they automatically know that they can pair it with when they walk up?
I believe so. That's the
Is
intention.
that happening?
That's how
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And sort of in our pre-meeting, what we kind of spoke about is that that makes it so we can't actually track who's using it because they don't need to ask to use it. So the accessibility is nice in that sense, and
Everybody-
it kind of just levels the playing field and makes it easy, but it does make it hard to know how many folks are
So
using it.
there's signage or something to say that you can pair your hearing device with this? Okay.
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, so I I like that we've already piloted it. And I guess just on the heels of what Alexandria was talking about with other potential projects, I wonder if, and I understand that the city doesn't just have money on trees to spend on accessibility stuff, but it does seem like if this was something that we piloted that worked very well, and I think it's been well received generally by everybody, that the city would ostensibly have money to allocate to sort of spread it out throughout other facilities, and that grant money can be really effectively used for pilot projects. So is there another technical or other pilot project that you're really interested in as part, gone through the certification and now having these credentials, something that we don't know is going to work, but seems like a good idea that the money would be maybe better spent to take more of a risk to try something that moves accessibility along in terms of adding more resources, and the city could then, because we've got this, so then this would be something that would be rolled into city budgets to then take care of for the rest of facilities. Not saying that if the city's not going to pay for it, obviously, that we want, we still want these accessibility devices, these assistive devices, but if the city is willing to consider that the pilot was a success and that they consider this a priority, that this money could be used to try another pilot project, perhaps.
It's a tough one to answer because they're all extremely important. Every one of them, and it's to try and find one that. The reasoning behind this is because it gives us an opportunity to take care of one whole issue instead of piecemealing here and there, and we still have some complexes. So for folks with hearing disabilities to go into one complex and be able to access this type of technology and then go to another complex and not be able to, almost it gets kind of confusing as well. So we thought this would just be one way of making sure this one was taken care of with still having a strong lens on all the other issues that we have and the accessibility issues we have in different facilities. So those are front and center. There's a multitude that we wanted to look at, and we do have the means and the mechanism for doing that now. So that's going to be kind of our next steps going forward, is take care of this one, and then using other resources and our abilities that we're gaining as we go along, take care of some of the other ones that come up. But they're all very important.
Bay.
Just wondering if you could remind me, is it just the T-loop systems that have been installed, or is it also a microphone and speaker for people who don't have hearing aids but have impaired hearing?
It's a microphone and speaker as well, I believe, that we've installed there.
Tammy.
Do you have a sense for how fast technology is progressing and how long, like, it's going to take for these to kind of become obsolete, kind of thing in the future? Do you have a sense of that?
I don't know how long. I mean, these have been in place for some time, and I think because they're successful and they work well, there isn't really a need to alter them in many ways. I mean, I can't speak technology, you know, as well as I do. It changes so quickly, but these types of systems have been in place for quite some time, and I think for that reason, because they do work well. So we're hoping we'll get some longevity. I mean, they do function, and people are accessing them and appreciating that they're there. So as long as they function in that form, I think we'll have them for some time. I'm sure there'll always be tweaks and things that come up in the future, and hopefully we can adapt what we have in place already to accommodate any kind of new technology changes. Yeah, exactly. As Darcy just mentioned, our IT department's pretty up on this kind of stuff, and if anything does come up, they're pretty keen to tell us as quick as, and you know, they keep an eye out for us as well.
I guess one of my questions about the grant is, like, are we thinking it would be more successful if we show a program where the grant covers the entire cost of the project, or is there an option to apply for something where it only covers a portion of it?
Well, this grant would cover the entire cost of this project. So
Yeah, I
that's
just think,
why we
like,
chose
I'm
that.
just asking theoretically, like, can you apply for a project that's more money? Because I think speaking
I
to
see.
sort of Sean's point about, and Alexandria's point about other potential projects, I see where that question is coming from, and like being able to see kind of a short list of other things we're thinking about. But I also know how much we do rely on grants all the time for the city to be able to do some of these more proactive things, just because the sheer number of, you know, basic services we have to cover, and the cost of things. Like we saw just adding one more universally accessible washroom at Westwood Lake was, you know, $100,000. So it is nice that this kind of just knocks all of these projects off the list at one time, but could we theoretically apply for something that it only covers a portion of a larger expense?
The grant process, I'm not sure. I'm assuming, working with other grants, that we could apply this towards a project that exceeds the amount of the grant, if that's what you're asking. If we wanted to look at that. I think our reasoning, again, was just because this just kind of made sense to knock off one project, pay for it. It's a little less messy as far as the grant process goes, and then trying to come up with other funding that, you know, that quickly. So, but I mean, it's quite possible we could look at that as an option.
I think maybe something that might be interesting for this committee, and maybe we've talked about it before, is just to see a general like wish list of accessibility items that the city is working on or like dreaming of, and things that we would like to achieve but maybe aren't there yet. And I feel like maybe we have talked about that, but it would be an interesting exercise and information for the committee to have, so we have a sense of, for future grants, what other projects are sort of on the wish list and what could we potentially add.
I'm certainly happy to report back to this committee on some of the different, I guess, initiatives we've looked at. Some of the ones I could do in two parts. One of everything we've done to date in the last couple of years, and then continuing on with some of the ones that are out there that we want to tackle next. And we could have a discussion around that. I have no problem doing that at all.
Yeah, and certainly with like our last conversation about the washrooms at Maffeo Sutton Park and what they could look like, and we were really dreaming big there, and some of those items would be pretty expensive, and ideally we could use grants, but I know we're kind of early in the process to be applying for funding for that project, as it's still in the works. Sean?
Yeah, we do a lot of grants at NACL, so I'm just conscious too that what is the timeline of the grant? I certainly don't want to miss out on a grant for the sake of seeing a wish list either. And I know often these things come out and they have a pretty tight turnaround. So I'd be interested in a wish list only if it doesn't mean we missed this opportunity. So do you know what is the deadline for this application?
Well, and just to clarify, Sean, I was talking about like just going forward,
Yeah.
not specifically for this grant, but my understanding is this is they're accepting rolling applications up until March of 2026
For this one?
for this one.
This is a one-time only, I believe. I believe it says here, it is a one-time funding for eligible BC municipalities and regional districts. So this one is a one-time only. That doesn't mean there won't be other grants available through the same initiative. It's just this one is, they're trying to get this one out.
But there's no hard deadline on this one until like March of 2026, you said?
And do you know if there is there a deadline for this one? March 20, okay, March 20. So we have till March to apply for this, so.
March 2026.
2026,
So a year
correct.
from next March.
From this, yeah, exactly.
From next March, yeah, okay. So there is time. Good, thanks.
So the process for this is that in order for the city to move ahead, it requires support from this committee that then goes to council, and then we say, yeah, thanks for the feedback and your endorsement, and we'll proceed with this application. So if there is support for moving ahead with applying the potential grant to this project, then I would be seeking a motion from the committee to support applying so that we can implement these hearing assistive devices at all 5 of our recreation facilities.
I would move that.
Okay.
I would second it. And I just wanted to clarify, the maximum grant amount is $25,000 for this particular grant. Yeah, I would support using that for this, using this grant for that purpose. Because I do know that if you apply for partial funding for the grant, you have to kind of like secure the other part of the funding before you can move ahead, and then to report back after you've done the project. It just gets kind of messy, yeah. So I would, yeah, I'd support this.
Okay, so not seeing any other hands, I'll ask all in favor of providing a letter of support to council for this application. Okay, I see, and any opposed? And that carries unanimously. Thank you so much to the committee for your feedback on this. Thank you, Mike, for your work.
Mike.
Congrats on your exam. And fingers crossed for this application. Under other business as part of the agenda, a update was provided from Lisa Brinkman on our design guideline project. Karen, did you want to mention this?
Sure. Lisa Brinkman, the manager of community planning, had met with this group previously and had sought your feedback on the form and character design guideline project. So they've now pulled it together in the form of a draft, which will now be available on the Get Involved website between November 20th and December 13th, 2024. So you've got the link there. So she is hoping that you'll take the time to pop on and provide some further feedback for that.
Okay. We have nothing for question period today, and so, yeah, I appreciate everyone's input, and I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Okay, moved by Tanya, seconded by Alexandria, all in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone, for being here and being online today. Really appreciate the committee's work. Take care.